claytodayonline.com or claytoday904 on Instagram. The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team. I'm Corva Coleman. The European Union says it will match President Trump and pause its pending tariffs against U.S. products for 90 days. Trump suspended some of his new tariffs yesterday, but he increased U.S. tariffs on China to 125%. China says it is open to negotiation, but NPR's John Ruwitch reports China says the U.S. first needs to change its attitude.
China's Commerce Ministry spokeswoman He Yongquan says the door for talks is open.
施压和威胁不是同中方打交道的。
But pressure and threats are not the right way to deal with China, she says. Dialogue must be conducted on an equal footing and on the basis of mutual respect. Beijing and Washington have been locked in a spiraling tariff war with each side blaming the other and no end in sight. Trump has said China wants to make a deal but hasn't given him a call yet to get the ball rolling. Despite openness to talks, China's foreign ministry spokesman Lin Jian says Beijing is prepared to continue to take resolute countermeasures to safeguard its rights and interests. John Ruwitch, NPR News, Beijing.
The suspension of tariffs is bringing some relief to small business owners. NPR's Windsor Johnston spoke to an entrepreneur in western North Carolina struggling to rebuild after Hurricane Helene.
Jessie Dean is the owner of the Asheville Tea Company. She says the on-again, off-again threat of tariffs is making it that much harder to rebuild her business from the ground up.
Coming off the back of losing our entire facility during Hurricane Helene makes this particularly challenging because we are trying to replace lost equipment that was washed down the river. We already had debt because of COVID.
The Trump administration says the use of tariffs will lead to a stronger trade relationship between the U.S. and international powers. However, the duties could force small business owners to either absorb the price hikes, pass them on to consumers, or risk going under. Windsor Johnston, NPR News.
President Trump has signed 2 executive orders that target private Americans. They're aimed at 2 men who worked during his first term in the White House. Trump is stripping their security clearances and ordering an investigation into their conduct while federal employees. One is former Homeland Security official Miles Taylor. He criticized Trump in an anonymous op-ed article and later publicly in a book. NPR's Ashley Lopez reports the other targeted person is former cybersecurity official Christopher Krebs.
For folks who don't remember this, right after the 2020 election, Krebs, who, by the way, has described himself as a lifelong Republican and he had been appointed by Trump, basically refuted Trump's big lie about the election being stolen. As you can imagine, Trump didn't like that. He fired Krebs at the time, and now he's ordering the Attorney General, the Director of National Intelligence, and other agency leaders to immediately suspend any active security clearances held by him and entities associated with him.
NPR's Ashley Lopez reporting. You're listening to NPR.
You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Good morning, I'm Stephen Ponson. It's now 9:04. The National Institutes of Health, part of the Federal Department of Health and Human Services, is eliminating more than $16 million in funding to support research at Florida A&M University in Tallahassee. The research focused on incident rates of triple-negative breast cancer and colorectal cancer, which is particularly relevant in Duval County, where the colorectal cancer incident rate has been higher than the statewide average for 15 years. Also, the rate of breast cancer in Duval is higher than the state's 6 other large metropolitan counties. 5 other universities in Florida also had health research funding revoked, but the 3 universities in Jacksonville University, the University of North Florida, and Edward Waters University are not affected by the NIH grant cuts, nor was Flagler College in St. Augustine. FarmShare is inviting low-income seniors to participate in a federally funded food distribution program. Florida's largest food bank is signing up seniors 60 and older to receive groceries from the government's Commodity Supplemental Food Program. Food insecure seniors in the Jacksonville area can sign up and receive free produce and non-perishable canned goods this Saturday morning at the Lake Butler Community Center starting at 8 and at the Fellowship Baptist Church of Rayford at 9. To sign up, visit farmshare.org. This afternoon in Jacksonville, we're going to have partly cloudy skies and calm winds. Highs will be near the lower 80s in the inland areas and in the mid-70s out at the coast. Mostly clear overnight with lows dropping into the mid-50s.
Our news.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the estate of Joan B. Kroc, whose bequest serves as an enduring investment in the future of public radio and seeks to help NPR be the model for high-quality journalism in the 21st century. This is NPR.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, the presiding judge of the region's largest veterans court discusses the successes and challenges of helping a population shaped by conflict and trauma. Later in the program, the author of Birding to Change the World offers a blueprint for environmental activism and community engagement. But first, in a country that has been at war for 3.5 decades, it's no surprise that the U.S. has legions of battle-scarred veterans. Untangling how that work contributes to later legal problems is the work of County Judge Mose Floyd. He joins us now to talk about Jacksonville's Veterans Treatment Court. Welcome, Judge Floyd.
Good morning. Thanks for having me this morning, Ann.
Thanks for being here. We're also joined by David Abramowitz. He is a senior mentor and volunteer with the Jacksonville Veterans Treatment Court. Welcome, David.
Thanks, Ann.
So Veterans Court is a diversion court, and in some ways is sort of similar to drug court or mental health court. Who is eligible, Judge Floyd, to participate in the Veterans Court?
Any veteran who has served and is not facing some more violent offenses, gun-related offenses, and we try and avoid taking people who are involved in sale of drugs because we don't want someone in court selling drugs. That we have a population that has drug issues, so we are trying to avoid those. But if they're not violent crimes, but even those that are arrested on violent crimes, they may not be the crime that can be charged. So they should even apply even if they're facing charges that they think are disqualifying, because the state may reduce the charge, and that would make them eligible to come into VTC. So virtually any vet who served and has suffered some debilitating injury, TBI, PTSD, some drug or alcohol-related incidents that's related to their service, they're eligible, and we'll screen them for acceptance into the program.
And so nonviolent felonies, I know that you also don't take people who are accused of sex offenses, but why is this court useful, and why is this court necessary?
It's necessary because, and I appreciate you doing this spot for us today, because the word has not gotten out. It's one of the best kept secrets in this big military town is that there is a court that takes veterans who are suffering from issues that are related to their service to the country and address the issue rather than punishing the vet, because until we address the issues, it's like a revolving door for veterans that should be getting treated for the issues that are related to their service to the country, and we can get that remedied. Sometimes they come in for a DUI. I think it's just an alcohol problem, but underlying that, there's the post-traumatic stress disorder that's related to their service, and it's not being diagnosed. But as we get with them and they talk to their treatment providers, that is uncovered, we can get to the root of the problem and get veterans who are homeless, separated from the family because they have anger issues, and get them back employed, re-engage with their family, and feel good about themselves. Many homeless living on the street have low self-esteem when they should be leaders in their community, and we can restore them to that rightful position in their communities.
And David, can you talk about how people are able to get the ball rolling in terms of participating in Veterans Court if they're charged with a crime? And then how is it determined whether what they've done is somehow connected to their service?
Good question. As Judge Floyd just said, is the hardest part of this program is getting the word out to veterans and lawyers to make sure they understand the program exists. It's a couple-fold we do. First of all, Judge Floyd has talked to all the jail, and they have an information sheet. So every time a person gets incarcerated and they find out they're a veteran, there's a piece of paper that explains, a one-page paper of Veterans Treatment Court, what it is, so they can alert their lawyers. I personally, my number's out for anybody who wants to call it, 770-688-5847. It's my personal call. And just call me. Just call me up. Judge Floyd can't talk to them directly as a judge. I'm like his, we call it his sergeant major, that I can talk to and say things that he can't say. And I go over at least 3 or 4 times a week with a veteran who's interested in it. I explain to them the program, how to get it. But ultimately, they have to apply through the state attorney's office, a great state attorney's office that we have. They apply, they get an assessment either from the VA or one of our case managers. They assess it, and then ultimately the state attorney determines whether they come into VTC or meet the qualifications. Then it comes to Judge Floyd. He's like the veto power of everything. He gets the package, and he determines with the input from the staff, and one of the staffs is me, because I've usually talked to that vet, and I find out there's a connection to what they did to the military service. And then Judge Floyd ultimately makes a call of they get approved, and then we start the process.
If you're just joining us, we are talking about the Veterans Treatment Court here in Jacksonville. We're talking to the judge that presides, Judge Mose Floyd, and a mentor and volunteer, David Abramowitz. If you have questions or comments, you can join our conversation. Give us a call at 904-549-2937. You can also email First Coast Connect at WJCT.org, or you can reach out on social media. Judge Floyd, you have a military background. How is it that you came to this court? I mean, this is a duty that you perform in addition to your work as a county judge. It's right?
Yes.
What is it that, is it your service that kind of brought you to doing this? And how does your service help or influence the way that you are making decisions and the way that you are able to relate to people in court?
I appreciate the question. I was sitting in my office one day, and the chief judge came by and says, I've got a spot open. Would you like to be the presiding judge over a Veterans Treatment Court? Hadn't given it much thought, but when the chief judge asks you to do something, you step up. And I said, sure. I thought it'd be a year or 2 at the max, but the good that we do in that court is so intrinsically rewarding to me that I would do that for the rest of my life if I could. I often joke that I would do it for free, and I realized I was doing it for free because this is on top of what I was doing before and not another nickel. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't get rewarded, because I get rewarded in space every time I see a veteran who is homeless, separated from his family, unemployable, get his driver's license, get a job, drug-free, in control of his mental facilities, and out leading in his community. That is all the reward I need, and it's amazing. We actually saved lives. Unfortunately, within the last year, we had 2 veterans who were admitted into the program. Before they can get in the program on day 1, they committed suicide. It is a serious problem, and that's why we're trying to get the word out, to serve our veterans, to give them the treatment that they deserve and need.
And you were a lieutenant colonel in the Marines.
Yes.
So does that sort of carry? Of course, you're a judge. People respect the judge in the courtroom, but does that sort of add a layer of command for the people that are before you?
I'm sorry I didn't address that part. I think that was the reason the chief judge came to him initially, because of my military background, and it means a lot. I hold myself out as a quasi-commanding officer, not just a judge in VTC, and that connection with the vet really means something. But first, they have to respect you as a leader, and I've led Marines for 22 years, and I know what makes them tick, and it applies to other service members as well. And some of the service members, the hardest thing for them to do is come before me and admit they did something wrong, because they respect me as a commanding officer. But it is a family environment. The veterans helping veterans extended to the mentor community, where we have seasoned veterans who are their battle buddies. It's a family environment. No one wants to leave anyone behind, and they take that to heart. So my connection as my military background, speaking veteran to veteran, means a lot in the court.
We have a call from Keith in Riverside. Good morning, Keith. Go ahead.
Good morning. I'm very interested in this topic. I wrote an article about the Bill Dudley at the St. John's Veterans Court, the work he was doing down there. Wrote it for Liberty Life Media. My concern is that there are a number of veterans out there that are headed for trouble, and I tried to bring one to the attention of the VA because of his his actions directed towards me, making threats and et cetera. And I tried to get a restraining order against the guy, and basically the judge said he wasn't doing anything illegal until he actually threatened me personally. So what suggestions do you have for trying to bring individuals?
Keith, I think you may have self-selected off the air there, but we get the gist of it. I mean, so we know that there are people with problems, and there are often warning signs. But to his point, I mean, what can somebody do if they're seeing those signs and trying to get somebody diverted before they need a diversion program?
Well, unfortunately, in Veterans Treatment Court, once people find out what it's about, they'll tell me, I have a son or daughter or cousin who's a veteran who's got trouble. How do we get them into Veterans Treatment Court? Unfortunately, they have to commit a crime before they come into Veterans Treatment Court. But there are other resources available. VA, Wounded Warriors Program, that will assist them in getting them back on their feet. But VTC is for those who have come through the criminal justice system. We get them out of that system into the treatment cycle. But there are numerous agencies that are available. And you want to take that up?
Sure. Thank you, Judge. I get a lot of these calls because they got to be charged first. And what we do, first of all, is make sure they have housing, because usually if they don't have housing, it causes a lot of problems. And there's great organizations like Five Star Veterans Center, or City Hall has a great department headed by Harris and Conyers that have a lot of places to get a job, to get help. But ultimately, sometimes they just need someone to walk them into the VA to get them into the VA benefits. Some of them don't have benefits. So a lot of times in my mentors, even though they haven't been charged and are not in VTC, we'll walk them into the second floor of Jefferson Street, the VA, with their DD-214, get them a primary care provider because they don't have money anyway, and we get them involved in the system and then try to get them a disability. And we find a lot of that time it helps.
Megan from St. Augustine. Good morning, Megan. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. I just wanted to thank your guest speakers for their efforts. My husband is a veteran and had to go through the Veterans Treatment Court because of a PTSD episode he had in the hospital because he was in sepsis, and he's sensitive to all of that. But I really appreciate the way that the Veterans Treatment Court works, because without them, we were each arrested as felons because we were defending ourselves in our own home. But I really, really appreciate their efforts. I appreciate the whole system.
Thanks, Megan. Judge Floyd, is there a particular story that stands out to you, a particular case that was meaningful for you or that was rewarding?
Yes. It's a young lady that was a recent spot on the news recently. She was heavily addicted to fentanyl. It was destroying her life. She would come to court, obviously under the influence, but it was a veteran. And as long as they're working, struggling, trying to do right, we would be there with them. It was a tough job with her. She was in the verge of losing her children, been in and out of the jail system, and she was in an inpatient program, left the program, went out and took an overdose of fentanyl, and was probably dead when someone saw her in a parking lot, just happenstance, and knock-cammed her and got her back to life, came back to court, and the way she was received back in the court, veteran to veteran, still wanted to help her. The light bulb came on, and she's been drug-free for over a year and a half now, got her kids back, married, living a successful life, and stays in touch with the court. It's success stories like that. She was practically dead, and she was saved, came back to the program, and she is one of our best ambassadors for VTC right now. So rewarding when you can visibly see a life that you changed and, in fact, saved.
And you were saying earlier, kind of restoring people it is a somewhat different population insofar as you're talking about people that had professional careers where they served their country. They were able to perform at a very high level in some cases. And so you are, as you approach them when they have committed this crime, it's not necessarily somebody that has led a life of crime, but somebody that has led, an honorable career and then has kind of fallen into this dark place.
Yes. Let me just say, there's so many great success stories. That's just one. We have another. We do active duty also. We had a young lady who was selected to be chief in the Navy. Her chief promotion was held on in pause. She successfully completed the program and great standards. She received her chief promotion, all of her back pay. She was selected to become an officer, commissioned officer. She's married now with a child. Her career was saved. We've saved many careers on active duty, and due in large part to our veterans going to the board, separation board, and speaking about what VTC means and how well they're doing in there. But the veterans are used to leading, and when they lose their self-esteem, they're not themselves. But when they come into Veterans Treatment Court, the first thing I tell them is that you have trust because you're a veteran. You have issues, we're going to help you work through those. But we together are going to march through this. It's a tough program. But on the end of this, you'll see your family come back together, you'll be employed, and you'll be the man that you were when or woman that you were when you wore the uniform. And they trust the process and tremendous success stories. I used to say we've graduated about 200 people so far. I used to say you can count on one hand the number who've been rearrested and convicted of anything. It's probably moved on to the second hand now, but that is a great recidivism rate. And the guys that graduate come back to serve as mentors. The things that David just mentioned that he does, that's just the tip of the iceberg. We call them the secret sauce of Veterans Treatment Court. Those are veterans that come back and lead the way. That's why we're so successful.
Yeah, and I guess you can compare recidivism rates because you also are county court judge, and so you're seeing another population.
No comparison.
Yeah.
Yes.
David, how important is it for people to be in a courtroom with other? How does it impact them? I guess maybe not how is it important, but how does it change things when their experience of court and the courtroom is with other people who are either active duty or military veterans?
Many of our veterans that come into VTC have been in other courts with other judges. And it's pretty, you did this, you didn't do that. There's no family atmosphere. What we have in our court with Judge Floyd's leadership is we have Judge Floyd, a veteran. We have the veterans in the court. This past week, we had 28 vets that were in the court with about 10 mentors. So when they come up, they have a veteran there. So it doesn't finish with court. In a regular court, you see your public defender, lawyer, and you're out. With us, the mentors with them, there's constant phone calls. The VA helps out with the things. And then Judge Floyd, especially the first 4 months, they come back every Wednesday and he verifies. So there's accountability of it, drug testing that goes on. And they feel like they're back in the military. Some of these people haven't been in the military and they miss the structure. The structure alone and Judge Floyd's implement after they graduate, we're still there. We still keep in touch with them for sure a year after, to check on them, to see how they're doing. And many a vet writes the big man over there, Judge Floyd, 2 to 3 to 4, 5 years later, will give them updates of, I've got a job, I've got 100% disability, I'm married, my kids are great, and more importantly, I'm sober now. And it's all attested to, I believe, the culture of our program that is very military friendly to ensure that you get back on the right path.
And can I add that before each court, I try and give an inspirational, motivational speech to the veterans, show them a motivational video to inspire them to realize that their dreams, though they've been delayed, are not out of reach. They've counted themselves out, but we've had veterans go on and achieve their dreams, become nurses, IT folks, get promoted and retained in the services, become engineers, things that they never thought they could do when they came into VTC. They're given hope in VTC, and that is a great thing.
And so what is typically asked of these participants in Veterans Treatment Court? And if they successfully complete it, what do they then receive that they might not otherwise if they were in a regular court?
In most instances, the charges against them are dropped, which is the reason they're employable again. There's some charge that they're facing that would not be employable. They could not pursue their dreams. That's the biggest thing. The charges are dropped. They are given assistance with housing, as David just mentioned, driver's license, which some of them are coming hadn't had a license in 15 years. In Jacksonville, you got to have a license. And we have great connections to employment agencies. New Hope has been a great friend of VTC, getting them skilled up and getting them interviews to jobs. So when they graduate, the charges are dropped. They're required to be employed. They've also done a project that gives back to the community. Many of them work with Habit Jacks or work with Orlick. Giving back to the community lets them know that they still have value and worth. So they have self-esteem, employed, charges are dropped, and a new lease on life. Yes.
So, David, if people are interested in connecting with Veterans Court or having one of their family members perhaps evaluated to participate, what do you suggest? And is there a point in the process at which it's just too late?
The answer is not too late. You want to request it and apply it to the state attorney's office. The easiest way is, of course, the state attorney's office has Veterans Treatment Court. You can go to their website. I would tell you to go to my nonprofit website that has everything in it: videos, what we do, how we do it. It's Friends of Jacksonville, VTC.com. It's pure, not run by the PT or state attorneys. It's solely by my mentors and the nonprofit. But I would say, give me a call. Give me a call as a veteran to veteran. And I talk to, as I said before, 4 to 5 veterans a week. And I'm retired, totally retired, 66 years old. I love giving back to the community. And as Judge Floyd said, there's something about a graduation. Just this past week, we graduated someone, 5 DUIs, but never had treatment. Judge Floyd makes sure he gets treatment, and he's been sober for a year. So he didn't go to jail. He worked, so he's giving taxes to Jacksonville. He could have gone to jail for 2-3 years. No treatment, no nothing. He's gotten treatment, and at the graduation ceremony, he looked at Judge Floyd and says, I'm never going to drink again because I have my family back, and drinking caused me. And he'd been a Marine that had been drinking for 35 years, never got treatment. We made sure initially, because it was hard for him, and he'll never drink again. His family was all there at graduation, crying and thanking Judge Floyd. Thank you for giving my son back.
Well, powerful stories. That is every Wednesday court. So we thank you for coming in on this Thursday to catch us up on it. Judge Mose Floyd, David Abramowitz will have information linking to court information with our story on our website. But thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us, Ann.
All right. Up next, author Trish O'Kane offers a guide to environmental activism. Well, birding and birds changed author Trish O'Kane's life, but as her new book details, they can also help change life on planet Earth. Joining me to discuss it ahead of 2 local readings this week is Trish O'Kane, environmental educator at the University of Vermont and author of Birding to Change the World. Good morning, Trish.
Good morning.
And we're also joined by Terry Sopp, local attorney and member of the Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings Society, which is hosting one of those readings this week. Good morning, Terry.
Hello, Ann. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you back. So, Trish, I've seen you described as an accidental ornithologist. Can you remind us of how you came to birding in the first place?
Sure. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me here. It's an honor. And I love Florida.
Oh.
I've spent years going to Ding Darling Refuge in Sanibel. I'm a huge fan of the birds of Florida. Of course, the birds of Florida are now on their way up to Vermont, too, where I live. The accidental ornithologist thing happened because something that Floridians will relate to because of a hurricane, Hurricane Katrina. I was a journalist, an investigative human rights journalist in Latin America for 10 years, in Central America, and then 8 years in Alabama. I worked at the Southern Poverty Law Center, and I did civil rights research for an outfit in Atlanta. And after all that, I moved to New Orleans to teach journalism at Loyola University. The problem is I moved there a month before Hurricane Katrina hit. But before Katrina, birds, zero. I knew nothing about birds. I didn't care about birds. I mean, I liked them. They were okay. But it was all about Homo sapiens, all about human rights, the horrible things we do to each other. But when I went through Katrina in New Orleans and our neighborhood was destroyed, that's when I saw viscerally, I smelled it, the connections between environmental justice and social justice. That there was no separating the two. And then I started watching birds. It was just a lark, pun intended. I was so distressed and so depressed. I just started noticing what was alive in the city because I moved back to New Orleans to teach that post-Katrina semester, which was really difficult because the city was still in ruins and
And you weren't able to live in your house at that point.
our house had to be bulldozed. It was underwater for 3 weeks
Mm.
because we lived in what was called the bowl below sea level, and the water took a while. The levee collapsed near our house. That was the 17th Street Canal levee. Collapsed like an angel food cake. That's how an engineer described it. And so, yeah, it was completely destroyed. Dozens of our neighbors drowned. And so I moved back into a rented room with a friend in the part of the city that did not flood.
But it was still a traumatized city and one that was reeling from the disaster and everything that had been lost.
Yes, and Floridians know that. I mean, it takes a long time after a hurricane to rebuild and to clean up and all the toxins we use in our lives. And so the water isn't just water, it's full of dangerous and poisonous materials. So yes, it was a ruined city. It was a half dead city, a stinky city. I mean, we referred to the place where we'd lived as the dead zone. And literally, when you drove in there, I went in just a couple of times to try to retrieve something, and it was right out of a sci-fi horror movie. But people here have they've seen those scenes too, right?
Sure. And so birding was something that was a vision to you of kind of life in the middle of all of this loss and devastation. And what was it about birds that started to? I mean, people see birds all the time, and then people sometimes become birders.
Yep.
What is it that kind of triggers you or moves you from seeing a bird to like really seeing
Yeah.
a bird?
Well, the first morning I moved back to New Orleans after Katrina, so that was in January of 2006 to teach. So I'm in a strange place. I wake up that morning in a friend's house. It's like 6 a.m. and it's silent, right? You're in a city and you don't hear traffic, you don't hear people because most people hadn't come back and 1,400 people had drowned. So I wake up and I'm lying there in bed and I'm feeling very sad and not hearing the people or the traffic, thinking this is so weird. This is because all these people died. And then all of a sudden I hear this clicking outside in my friend's yard. Remember, this is a new place. I don't know the yard. I don't know anything. And I'm like, what's that? And I open the window and there's this cardinal, this beautiful, bright red bird. And I'm like, oh my God, there's something alive out there. Literally, that's what happened. And I was so grateful because so many of the animals were dead. They drowned. And so the birds, I realized immediately, wow, they can fly. Maybe they flew away. Maybe they survived. And that was it for me. Like anything alive in that city, I was going to cling on to it with everything I had just to get through the day.
Mm.
And so after that cardinal, I went out and got a couple of bird feeders at the hardware store in New Orleans and seed. I hung them on my friend's fence. And every morning I started, before I walked to Loyola to teach, I sat down on her back stoop with a cup of coffee and I watched those little sparrows fighting over the seed. And that got me through the teaching day because a lot of my students, I mean, there were tears every day in class. This was, January, February, March, April. We were coming up on the next hurricane season. Everybody knew that. The levees were still trashed. Nobody knew what was going to happen. And so every day in the classroom, there were tears, right? So I needed something to get through that. And the birds, watching them in the morning for just 20 minutes, half an hour every day, that was my medicine. And that's how I got hooked.
You have since gone on to, you got a PhD at the University of Wisconsin after this experience. And it was there that your interest in birding really kind of expanded to include this whole web of environmental activism and a deeper understanding of how it all is interconnected.
Mhm.
Can you talk to us about, first of all, just kind of what was happening when you moved to Madison, Wisconsin, and why that started to evolve into a larger picture for you?
Sure. Well, after teaching in New Orleans, I really wanted to know a lot more about the environment. Again, my background was in human rights and economics. And so I was 44, and I thought, I really want to be outside all the time watching birds, and I want to understand what happened in New Orleans and what's happening to the planet, because that was the first time it hit me like, oh, something's wrong here. This hurricane was so severe, and the water in the Gulf is so warm. Climate change is real, but I knew nothing about climate change. So I decided to go back. I got the PhD. We moved to Madison, my husband and I, and we move across the street from a beautiful urban park, very similar to Audubon Park in New Orleans. And I took an ornithology class because I, wanted to know more about the birds. And the professor said, find a place, go there every week for 1 hour and watch the birds. And I said, I'm going to go across the street to my park. And I ended up finding 142 species in this city park. And half of them were birds that migrated to Central and South America in the winter. And then they came back to Madison, to that same park, to build their nests. So that turned into part of my PhD in a study. But the organizing part came just from talking to a neighbor who loved the animals, Hetty Jacobson. She's 94. She still lives on the edge of Warner Park. And Hetty told me one day, she said, you're studying ecology. Can you tell me why the city would want to put a sidewalk through the meadow in the park? And I said, I don't know. And she said, well, I can't go to meetings at night anymore. I'm afraid of falling down. And could you go to the neighborhood meeting and find out about this? And I didn't want to do it. I thought, oh, God, I don't want to go to a neighborhood meeting. How boring. And, I'd never been to one before. That was the beginning of a 5-year fight. 150 hours of public meetings, 15,000 words of testimony just from me and my husband. We ended up forming a neighborhood group, and we stopped a city plan to pave parts of that park and destroy woods and wetland. And that group's called Wild Warner, and it still exists today. We started it in 2010, and it's still going strong. And now Warner Park, that park is a major birding hotspot in Madison, Wisconsin.
In part because of the research that you did and finding how many species were coming there and
because
visiting.
people didn't know the birds were there, and they were like, wow, well, we don't want to lose these birds. This is really special. And then I started a children's program based at the university that's still going on, pairing college students with kids and taking them to Warner Park every week to learn about the birds and run around and play together. Now I direct that same program in Vermont, and it's also been replicated at Brown University in Providence. Charleston's interested in replicating it, and I think there's a professor of English in Gainesville who I just spoke with last week who's also interested in using it in an English class, a version of it, not exactly the same. So yeah, that's how it started. A neighbor said, hey, what do you think about this? And I thought, well, that doesn't sound like a very good idea. You go to a public meeting, and 5 years later, you're still in the fight. But we won.
Yeah.
We won.
If you're just joining us, we're talking to Trish O'Kane. She's the author of Birding to Change the World. She's in town this week for some readings. If you'd like to join our conversation, you can give us a call at 904-549-2937. You can also email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org or reach out on social media. We have a message from Jane on Facebook. She says, as a retiree here in Jax, I just volunteered for the 2025 New Orleans Book Festival, Mardi Gras for the Mind. I did not know who you were until the festival. I was there for your book signing, the presentation, and all the individuals who now are interested in birding. I hope you have watched the residents. Birds are everywhere. They tell us when storms are coming and when the sun comes out. Thank you, Trish O'Kane. What is it about your experience that you think, I mean, this is a memoir, but it is also sort of a guidebook to helping people become more environmentally aware, active, and engaged with their community. What is it about your experience that you think is instructive for other people?
Well, first of all, I want to thank that caller. It was so emotional and such an honor to go back to New Orleans 19 years later and give the book back as a gift to that city, because I love the city so much, and people's spirit and spunk, and of course the birds. So that was an incredible event that she was talking about. Such an honor. I think there's a lot in the book that people can learn from and draw from, and it's pretty common sense stuff, but I didn't know it, right? I mean, I'd worked as a journalist, but I had not worked as a community organizer. The first thing it started with was kindness. I mean, Hetty Jacobson came to us the first morning we had arrived. Here we are, Katrina evacuees in Madison, Wisconsin. I'd never lived in the snow. I'm from Southern California. To me, this is the weirdest place in the universe. 100 inches of snow in the winter, a horror movie, right? And the first morning we wake up after driving for 3 days from Alabama with our 2 dogs and moving trucks, and we get there, wake up the next morning in this strange, weird place, and there's this knock on the door. And there's this German woman standing there like in a bathrobe with this hot pan, and she thrusts it at me and she says, "You have coffee pot?" And I'm like, what? What is this? And she'd baked us an apple coffee cake with apples from the park across the street, she told us.
Wow.
And that was the beginning of our friendship, which is still ongoing. Every time I go to Madison, I go to see Hetty and sit in her backyard, and she serves me something delicious. So it started with her. And because she came over to welcome strangers, we became friends, and she became one of my mentors and teachers, and she knew the animals in the park. Because of her, I ended up in a neighborhood meeting. Because of her, we ended up starting a neighborhood organization. So sometimes these efforts just start with kindness and greeting a stranger or baking something for someone. It doesn't have to start with a big thing. That can be a very big thing. And I think there's a lot of moments of joy in the book, because often people, we're right now especially, I feel very overwhelmed and like, where do we start and how are we going to save all the things we love? And then reminding myself, it started really small with an act of kindness and becoming friends with people, neighbors, and it was super local. So I think people can take lessons and comfort from that. And we really did save that place.
Yeah.
And now it's cherished by many, many people.
Terry Sopp, I want to ask you, you've invited Trish O'Kane, the Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings Society invited her to be the keynote this year. That's in Amelia Island this weekend. What is it about her writing that is relevant to the people of the Society of Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings? And maybe it's worth giving us a little reminder of who she was.
Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings was an author who moved to Florida in the 1920s and lived in a small orange grove. I hope everyone has been to her farm at Cross Creek. She wrote...
which is near Gainesville.
South of Gainesville, yes, in between Gainesville and Hawthorne. And she wrote the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, The Yearling, among many, many other books, short stories, collections. But she really became involved in the community. She moved, like the two of you, from the University of Wisconsin to Central Florida, bought an orange grove, sight unseen, and she and her husband tried to make a go of it at this orange grove, but she found, having majored in English at the University of Wisconsin, she found that writing about the people and the place and the surroundings was really more important to her than actually running an orange grove. And so she has a remarkable sense of place about Central Florida, about the scrub, about the people who live there. And so there's a society called the rawlingssociety.org. Well, that's our website. It's it's dedicated to keeping Marjorie's works at the forefront. It's for lovers of literature. It's for academics. Every year we have an annual meeting. We sponsor writing contests for elementary, middle, and high school. We have speakers, a panel of speakers, academics, historians. We always go on a boat tour. And this year, Trish is our keynote speaker. I've known Trish for since 2005. I met her right after Katrina when she spoke at the Amelia Island Book Festival, sorry. And I thought, after this book came out and I read it, that she would just be perfect because of the connection with the soul and the environment, which Marjorie often drew from in her work.
Yeah. And so this event is obviously for people who love books, but it is a way to connect people to kind of thinking about activism perhaps in a different way, and maybe in a way that's less maybe that's smaller. There is, though, I think a sense of, diminishment that people feel when they're looking at such a big
issue, things like, climate change, or I've seen you kind of call it climate chaos as opposed to climate change. You think that starting small, though, is the way to begin effective engagement like that?
I do. I don't think it's the only way. We need systemic change. But if you think, I'm a big student and fan of the civil rights movement. I lived in Montgomery, Alabama, 8 years. I worked at Southern Poverty Law Center. I met my husband there. And living there and going to work every day next to Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, Dr. Martin Luther King's little church, I mean, you realize movements start in a place. They don't start in the ether. They're not abstract. And they start with one or two or a few people saying, no, this is not okay. Like people are starting to stand up right now. Law firms, even universities starting to organize and saying no to some of the executive orders. So it starts with someone and it starts in a place. And so, yes, I believe we all can do a lot from where we're standing, and that the earth, and I love Cross Creek. I'm just finishing it. Marjorie Rawlings' work, that the sense of the land giving you strength and the soil you stand on and the waters, feeding your soul. So we all need those connections right now and that strength to do what we're going to have to do.
So Trish is speaking at mine.
Tonight, Trish is speaking at Happy Medium Books and Cafe. You can call the bookstore. It's over in the Park and King neighborhood. It's a wonderful, small, woman-owned bookstore. We love it very much, and their website will tell you about it. I think there's still some spaces available. I know the spaces, it's free, of course, but you had to make a reservation, and I know that it's filling up quite fast. But Happy Medium Books is hosting Trish tonight, and they have her book for sale there also.
And if people are interested in participating this weekend in Amelia Island?
The rawlingssociety.org, you can click on the conferences and events button, and it will tell you a little bit about that. The conference, I believe, is still open for on-site registration. I think the boat tour might be as well, but I know the banquet where Trish is speaking is sold out.
Oh, well, I guess you can catch her tonight if you can catch her at all. But it is an incredibly deeply researched book. It is a beautiful memoir and a really great instruction manual for participating in community. So thank you for being here, Trish. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So wonderful to be in Florida. Birder paradise.
That's right. Terry Sopp, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Ann. It's great to be here.
All right. Up next, exploring your artistic side at summer camp for both kids and... This week on Kingpins and Catalysts.
Once you get in the streets, you get so embedded in the streets that you don't care about anything else.
The story of Dana Miller, an East Side drug lord turned community Sherpa.
To this day, if I hadn't gotten arrested, I don't know where I would be.
I'm Ann Schindler, and Kingpins and Catalysts is my new podcast about the transformational people of the First Coast. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
On the next Fresh Air, journalist Gardner Harris talks about his book investigating Johnson & Johnson. Last month, the company lost a bid to settle lawsuits that claimed its talc powder products, including baby powder, caused cancer. Johnson & Johnson faces tens of thousands of claims. Harris's book is called No More Tears. Join us.
Today at noon on WJCT News 89.9.
A White House executive order eliminates, quote, improper anti-American ideology from the nation's museums.
They want to erase from American history all the things that we shouldn't be proud of.
And give advice as we get the latest on the economic fallout of the president's tariffs. That's next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Unlocking the power of creative expression is the focus of a series of summer camps for kids and grown-ups alike. Here to tell us about it is artist and art teacher Sunny Myers, creator of Go Create. Welcome, Sunny.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So you started Go Create, I think a couple of years ago?
About 6 years ago,
O
yes.
okay. What inspired you in the first place to create it?
Well, I am an art teacher by day, actually, and so I had a friend reach out to me about doing a party for her daughter, an art party, and I thought, yeah, I can definitely do that, but, I think I'd like to do that a little bit more for everyone and give, people of all ages a outlet to create, across our community. So I started reaching out to local businesses and setting up these other events for people of all ages to come in and make art.
And most grown-ups have left behind the days of summer camp. We're, thinking at this time of year about how to sign up our kids for camp, but you are encouraging adults to think about participating as well.
Well, my camps are for kids ages 5 and up.
Sure.
We're doing them at Cork Arts District this summer, all summer long. But I do offer opportunities for adults all throughout the year as well. So they can come to our pop-up events at local breweries or tap places anytime.
Yeah. And so what is it that you think that brings an adult to be able to participate in something that is just a purely creative endeavor?
I think, we all need an outlet to create, and we might not know what that is, what kind of speaks to us. So giving people that opportunity to try different materials because we offer so many different things throughout the year. You could paint with us with watercolors or acrylics. You could come do pottery with us right now. Actually, we have pottery classes going on all around town. Shibori tie-dye, printmaking, we've embroidery, just letting them experience all these different things and having a person come in and do watercolor with me and saying, where do I get these from? I want to make this now at home. I want to start doing this on my own.
Yeah. I think one of the cool things about these various week-long camps that you're offering all throughout the summer is the way that you really go deep on a topic. So your paint class is basically, as you say, you can explore with all different kinds of paints.
Yes.
And so you're not just focused on one experience, but you really are getting this range of experiences. Or if it's, mixed media, you're kind of looking at all these different ways that people can create, whether it's sculpture or collage or printmaking. You've got this whole mishmash of different kinds of things people can learn.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some really talented instructors that are going to be leading the kids' camps this summer at Cork. Like you said, there's going to be one focused purely on paint, like all different types of paint for them to explore with. We're going to be traveling through time and doing like art from the masters and things like that.
And you are kind of an art history background, is that right?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
So I always bring that into a little bit of that background knowledge to our classes to give people that little history behind it, where it's come from.
And so this is at Cork, but you also have classes that you're going to be offering at Atlantic Beach Arts Market?
Yep. So we have 2 locations where we're going to be offering classes.
Cork seems like a really fun place to go to summer camp. I mean, for people who haven't been, it's just an incredible environment, very creative feeling. And so what part of the area are they in, and how long does it go, and kind of what do you provide?
So the art camp is going to be located in their studio space or classroom space. It's kind of like right by those railroad tracks when you cross Roselle Street. And then we have a great little area space there to create in. The kids can also kind of like take a little tour of the space and see the other working artists that are here in Jacksonville and see what they're making.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's kind of fun for them. And it runs from Monday through Friday from 9 to 1 p.m. And you can find all the information on our website, which is gocreate.com.
And so this is similar to like the structure of a summer camp, but you also managed to work environmental awareness into some of these programs in terms of like recycled art, or just art that works to admire and experience the natural world. Is that something that you are doing intentionally, or is that just kind of a reflection of you and the other artists that are participating?
I think as artists, we always are having a mindset of sustainability in our lives, myself included, and I definitely do want to work in recycling, that mixed media element to it. The world that we live in Florida is so beautiful. We can kind of capture that as well.
Yeah. And so, Sunny, if people are interested in either attending as a grown-up or attending as a kid, what should they do? Where could they get more information?
They can find it on our website, like I said, gocreate.com, which is GOGH, like Van Gogh, or Go Create is on Instagram and Facebook, where all of our classes are listed too.
All right. Well, Sunny Myers of Go Create, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. And that's our program. Thank you so much for listening. If you have questions or comments, you want to send feedback, you can send any of it to First Coast Connect at WJCT.org. If you missed anything today, you can catch our rebroadcast at 8 o'clock tonight. You can also find our entire archive at WJCT.org or on your favorite podcast platform. The executive producer of First Coast Connect is David Luckin. Our show's produced by Stacey Bennett and directed by Brady Coram. Jamie Valet is our associate producer, and our theme music is performed by Club de Belugas. Join us tomorrow when we talk about all the week's headlines with our Friday Week in Review panel of media news hounds. We're going to be talking about a possible food truck ban and a near-fatal incident at the county jail. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to
First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com. Congaree & Penn, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field-to-fork dining and outdoor experiences on over 300 acres. Sip, dine, explore. Information at congareeandpenn.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news.